Welcome to the Prospective Doctor Podcast, where we will provide essential information for pre-medical students and those already in medical school. Listen each week for tips on how to improve your application and gain an acceptance to medical school.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. It's Dr. Marinelli with Med School Coach. Today I wanted to talk about admissions decisions. So at this point in the admissions cycle, which right now it's November 2018, most people have started interviewing or heard about some interviews, and some people actually still haven't heard, and that's normal too. But I wanted to talk about the people that have interviewed and are now awaiting or hearing from admissions decisions and what those different decisions are and what they entail. So let's just start out by saying that the interview season for the 2018-2019 cycle usually starts with the earliest interviews sometime in September. Those are pretty early, sometimes a little bit before, but around September is where things usually start. And interviews can continue all the way up until May of 2019. I've even seen some interviews in June. So it can continue for a long time. So for those of you that have had interviews already, great, you're in an awesome position. And for those of you that are still waiting to hear for interviews, that's okay too. It's totally normal to not have interviews at this time. I usually don't start getting worried about applicants not having interviews until February or March. That being said, let's talk about the people that have had interviews and then what happens next. So after an interview, a school usually will tell you that they will send you an admission decision within a few weeks. And those decisions can be one of three things: either an acceptance, a waitlist, or a rejection. So let's talk about the worst one first, rejection. So after an interview, it is very possible, even though having an interview is a good sign, it's kind of like having your foot in the door at a particular school, you can still be rejected post-interview. And that is okay. Don't expect that every school that you interview at, you will get an acceptance. Usually I see probably about 50%, maybe 40 to 50% of people that interview at a particular school get an interview. And that's for a good, well-rounded applicant. Sometimes I see no one get an acceptance after an interview, and sometimes I see that number all the way up to about 80%. But it is normal to get rejections from some schools that you interview at. There's not much you can do with rejection, unfortunately. Sometimes their schools do offer an appeal process. So if for some reason you completely disagree with their rejection decision, you can appeal their decision. However, that usually has to be on the grounds of some kind of unfair interview circumstance or something like that. You can't appeal a decision just because you think you should get in. So if you feel like you were possibly treated unfairly during the interview, or if you didn't get the right chance during the interview or something to that extent, then you could consider appealing it. However, I do not hear about many people ever getting accepted off an appeal. I know it is possible, but usually this is not a path that most applicants take. So let's talk about the next best decision after that, which is being on a wait list. So early in the application cycle, like we are now in November, I think being on the wait list is great. Even though it can be disappointing for applicants to not get an acceptance right away, being on the wait list is actually a good thing, because a lot of schools, as they go through more applicants and they proceed through the application cycle, they will start offering acceptances to a lot of candidates off the wait list. Some schools say that they even accept up to 50% of their class off the wait list. So it is not a bad place to be. It's actually a good place. It basically means the school likes you. They're not set on you right away. They're going to look at some other candidates, but they are going to come back and review your application later on. There's not too much you can do on the waitlist position. Obviously, it's important to write back the school and tell them thank you, and make sure that you are carefully monitoring your email and looking at the school's portal to make sure you're not missing any updates. But In addition, really the only other thing you can do to help your chances on the wait list is to write a letter of interest or a letter of intent. I tend not to recommend letters of intent because I don't think it's the most honest thing to do to bind yourself to one particular school by saying that you intend to matriculate there. So I just call them letters of interest. In those letters, you can talk a little bit about your interview, what you really liked about the school, and update them on any additional information or activities that you've participated in since interviewing there, and then just express your continued interest in reviewing their school. We have a whole podcast on letters of interest and intent that you can feel free to listen to get more information about that. But basically, these letters should be short, concise, and written maybe one time, and then maybe you could, at the most, check in with the school via email every couple of months with just a short email just saying that you're checking on the status of your application. However, the important caveat to this is you should check the school's website to make sure that they allow update letters, letters of interest, or even correspondence at all. Some schools explicitly say, do not contact the admissions office until admission decision is reached. And that is what they prefer because they could have thousands of applicants sending them letters or emails, and it can just inundate them. So make sure that you check this with the school to ensure that they allow these updates. It's not perfectly clear how well letters of updates can actually help your application. Some schools, it seems to do really well for certain applicants, and some schools, it doesn't really seem to have much of an effect at all. However, they rarely hurt. So I do encourage in sending letters of interest to schools that you're on the wait list at. Again, just checking to make sure that they accept them, and keeping them short, less than a page, is the most appropriate thing to do. Besides that, the wait list is really what it is. It's waiting. You're waiting for the admissions office at that particular school to go through several other applications and then continue to evaluate yours. You could expect to hear an admissions decision all the way up to May or June. June is pretty late, but I do see some people get accepted in June. So just try to stick it out on the wait list, keep in touch with them, keep checking your emails. The best and final decision that you can hear post-interview is an acceptance. And of course, everybody likes to hear this. It's a great place to be. That means that the school very much liked you during your interview and liked your application, and they want to offer you an immediate acceptance. If this is your first acceptance during the application cycle, I absolutely recommend that you take that acceptance. And what that means is each school has a slightly different policy, but you will have to formally accept their invitation to attend. And usually that involves signing a letter or responding to an email or going into their portal and accepting an invitation for matriculation. And a lot of schools do require a deposit to hold your place in the class. Usually this is like $500 to $1,000 deposit to hold your place in the class. However, like I said, if this is your first acceptance, take it and pay the deposit. Most schools will offer you a refund of the deposit till a certain timeline where you can still accept other offers and possibly receive where you can receive most or all of the deposit back. And some schools won't. However, even if you risk losing the deposit, it is still important to take that acceptance and not gamble. And it is still important to take that acceptance and not gamble, possibly not receiving another acceptance. I know it sounds terrible to potentially lose $1,000 deposit, but in regards to a medical education and the cost of a medical education, that is really just a drop in the bucket. So it's absolutely worth it just to take that acceptance and secure your seat in a class. You can receive multiple acceptances and you can hold multiple acceptances at a time. However, the AMC does ask you to withdraw any acceptances at a school that you know you will not attend. So let's say you get an acceptance to UCSD and then NYU. Let's say your heart is set on attending NYU. So instead, you're going to say, okay, NYU, I'd like to go to you, and UCSD, no thank you. Make your deposit and confirm your acceptance at NYU, of course, before withdrawing at UCSD. But it is just a courtesy to other applicants and to the schools that you're applying to withdraw those acceptances to schools that you know you will not obtain. You will not attend. After April 30th of 2019 for this cycle, the AMC stipulates that you can only hold one acceptance at a school at a time. So again, they ask you to withdraw as soon as you know which school you'd be attending, but after April 30th, then they require you to commit to one school. So it is important to be thinking about these things, prioritizing which schools you would like to attend if you do get multiple acceptances, and plan that out accordingly. I always think of it as, yeah, it's so great to hold multiple acceptances, and you're definitely one of the lucky ones if you do. However, think about the other applicant that is just waiting and hoping so much to get an acceptance, and perhaps you withdrawing out of school could open up a slot for him or her to get that acceptance. So make those decisions early. However, secure your spot with that particular school before you make any decisions or withdraw any acceptances that you have. If you are one of those lucky enough applicants to get an early acceptance, the other question I get pretty frequently is, can I cancel my other interviews? So let's say you get an acceptance at UCSD and you have several other interviews coming up, but maybe these are schools that you're not as interested in attending, so you don't want to go to all those interviews. That is fine. Even if you've confirmed your seat with the school, you can still cancel them. However, it is important and it is a nice courtesy to the school to look at their particular guidelines. Some of them don't want you canceling before a particular date. And if you've already committed to them and it's so close to the actual interview, it is the right thing to do to attend the interview. And who knows, you may end up really liking that school and want to pursue going there. So you can cancel future interviews. Again, however, I do recommend that you confirm and secure your seat in that particular school that you got an acceptance to, just to secure your matriculation plans for the fall. So those are the various admission decisions that can be made after an interview. Again, you're not going to get accepted. Again, more than likely you won't receive an acceptance from all of the schools that you interview at. You will likely get waitlisted at some, and some you will receive a rejection. However, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is a long process. You can still hear about all these admissions. This is a long process. You can still hear about these admissions decisions all the way until the end of the spring. So it's important to be patient. Check your emails frequently. Make sure you're checking your spam inbox. Have your phone on. Answer your phone if you see a strange number call, because it could be an admissions office. And just keep in touch with the schools appropriately and express your interest to them appropriately. And that is how I see most people succeed throughout the application process. If you have any questions about your application or need prep, if you have any questions about your particular application or need some help prepping for interviews, definitely visit www.medschoolcoach.com. We can help you thoroughly prep for interviews, talk about how to phrase your post-interview correspondence and write letters of interest, and just make sure that you are keeping on track during this application cycle. I wish everybody the best of luck. It is Thanksgiving this week, so happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for all of the applicants out there and for everybody that is pursuing medicine. You all you all continue to inspire me with your motivation and your vision, and I hope that you all join us soon as colleagues. Take care. See you guys next week.
Our mission is to inspire, encourage, and inform students as you journey through a rigorous and intricate process of achieving your dreams in medicine. Visit us at prospectivedoctor.com for more essential resources in your medical school journey.